So on Christmas, we got Battle Siren reveals. I gotta say, they're looking really good, so let's get right into it. So starting with the right line, we have the starter, pretty cool artwork. Then the grade 1, so their weaponry is really cool actually. So what the grade 1 does is that when it's placed right in the actual starter, reveal grade 3 Argo Siren from the right deck as cost. Then search your deck for 1 Tiding card and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. Okay, Tiding, so orders. It has a rearguard skill in the back row. Once per turn, your unit in the same column as this unit is stand by a card's ability. Then if you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren in its name, you can Soul Blast one and stand this unit. So it's a restanding booster too. So I can see some usage in the, main deck as well. Let's keep digging. So I guess to cover a Tiding card, we have the first one here. Pretty cool artwork too. So by paying the cost, it's Soul Blast 1, and as long as you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren, so it is name restricted. And then when it's finally put into the order zone, you could actually check top 7, choose 1 card from among them that if it's a Tiding card, you could add it to your hand, or if you can call it to, or if it's an Argo Siren, you can call it to a rearguard circle that is the same grade or less to your Vanguard, and then shuffle. And then the last skill that has auto when this card is bound from the order zone by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Argo Siren in its card name, choose one of your rearguards and stand it. So a couple of things. This already insinuates that it's going to be able to restand your rearguards as long as you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Argo Siren. I like that they added or greater, so there's potential for a grade 4 in the future or maybe some premium usage for fun decks. The auto, when it's placed into the order zone, that's actually nice that it basically replaces itself with a new card. And in Stoicheia, we really don't want to minus cards. The new grade 2, let's see. When this unit is placed right in the grade 1, reveal grade 3 with the Argo Siren from the right deck. Search your deck for up 1 Tiding card and reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So essentially, as you're writing up from the grade 1 to the grade 2, you're just adding Tiding cards. And it's making sure that you have the grade 3 Argo Siren in your right deck, so you're playing that deck. Okay, I see. And then continuous rearguard, if you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren, this gets boost essentially. Okay, so 10k booster if needed. I don't know if that's really worth it in the main deck, but right deck is fine. So we get 2 Tiding cards, guaranteed by the time we rate to grade 3. And the grade 3 art looks pretty cool. I'm very curious how this looks like at SP full art. Please be full art. And so it has 3 skills. Continuous during your turn. If your bind zone has 1 or more different Tiding cards, this unit gets plus 5k. And if you so happen to have 2 or more different ones, all of your firm row gets 5k instead of just this unit. So your goal is to get 2 or more different ones, so that way your entire firm row has this passive plus 5k. That's really good. Reminds me of Minerva too, when you have the passive Regalia in the soul, essentially, to have that passive 5k. So any new units or any restanding units will benefit from that a lot, especially Personal Ride. If you think about it, like on Personal Ride, it's a plus 15 instead of a plus 10. That's actually nice. And then the second skill is that act once per turn. Discard a card from your hand, choose a Tiding card from your drop, and put it into the order zone. Okay, so you can actually discard excess Tiding cards from your hand and then immediately put them in the drop zone that way too. Or if you so happen to damage one or mill one from an effect or something like that, you can actually get those still. Oh, okay, that's actually nice. Not to mention that if you use the grade 1 Tiding card, it pays for itself because it's going to cost something else, because that'll trigger since it will be sent to the order zone technically still without paying the cost. That's also a major thing too. It's just like Welstra. You can actually use this ability to put more than 1 order in the order zone more than once per turn, essentially, because you can play normal orders once per turn as a player. So if you want to add additional ones, it has to be some type of effect like this one. The third one is the auto once per turn. When this unit attacks a Vanguard CB1, choose a Tiding card from your order zone and bind it. So that's where the binding comes from. Then, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Energy Blast 3 and choose 2 Tidings instead of 1. Okay, so you do 2 at that point. So the other Tiding card must be really good, and judging by the artwork, it looks pretty epic. It's unified in that sense. So what this is, it's a grade 3 order of Tiding. You wouldn't be able to activate this till turn 3, it seems. Also Soul Blast 1, and if you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren, when this card is put into the order zone, search your deck for up to 1 tier dragon and call it to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. Holy crap, okay. This searches for any tier dragon. So we do have a couple of options. Obviously, Inlet Pulse has been mentioned already. There's also Thailand Dragon 2 for Persona Ride turns. And there's a couple of other options and tags that you can play, but like the fact that you search directly for it, that's actually pretty good. I think that leaves some room from interesting tags potentially too. When this card is bound from the order zone by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Argo Siren, as expected. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets the auto skill. The auto skill is that your Vanguard, at the end of the battle, did this unit attack? If it did not stood by a card's ability this turn, then stand this unit. and increase or decrease this unit's drive to 1 until the end of turn. And then it keeps the ability to the end. Holy crap. So this makes Vanguard, your Vanguard a restander essentially. So you'll attack Twin Drive, on attack CB1 to do the skill to bind the 2, ideally, 1 of each. You restand your Vanguard and a rearguard column. So you have 5 attacks total, and then 2 of them being Vanguard. The second Vanguard attack swing would be 1 drive though, which is fine because for what it seems, like everything is kind of replacing itself in types of advantage, so we actually don't lose any card advantage to do this. That's actually pretty good. It's just making sure that the orders are in place for us to actually bind them, of course. I think that's the con, I guess.
Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. The great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase.
So not only this wave of support got the right line itself, it actually got more support to it. So this is the first full wave of support for it, pun intended. So Melsun, at the end of the battle, this unit boosted a tier dragon. Put this into the soul and choose one of your units and it gets 5k into the end of the turn. Okay. So you can make whatever unit that you're standing still strong enough, especially if you boost it. And this is assuming that you don't have a restanding booster. That makes sense with the restanding booster, actually. So instead of the Soul Blast, this will fuel the soul, which I can see the deck needing that. Especially if you do play the Titan cards, they use Soul Blast 1, so you'll be using the soul gradually as you ride up to. So I can see why this card could be value. This grade 2, that looks pretty epic. So this is a tier dragon, I believe. Yes, he's a tier dragon. So 2 skills to drop. While Titan is put into your order zone, if you do not have a rearguard with the same card name as this card, CB1 and call this a rearguard. So essentially, whenever you put that order into the order zone, this literally can revive itself. So the way that it's worded to, remember that Vanguard will check and resolve the skill 1 at a time. So even if you have 2 of these, and none exists on your board, even though both could activate or they see the timing, you have to resolve them 1 by 1. So if you revive the first one, then the other one will check the whole entire condition again and make sure that, like, hey, there's one that exists, so you can't do this. So you can only revive 1. I think that would have been cool if you could revive 2 at once, but it is what it is at that point. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, put a Titan card from bind zone into drop, and this unit gets plus 10k until the end of the turn. Okay, so we have a cycle here. So the cards will go into the order zone. The Vanguard not only puts them into the order zone, but also puts them into the bind zone. And now you have a grade 2 that puts them from the bind zone into the drop. And now you can recycle those back and forth with your Vanguard. And then you could probably use some other Stoicheia support to grab those orders back into your hand, which we do have support for that if we want to go that route. But it also gets power 10k. That makes it a beater. That's actually good to restand, actually. I like this so far. Next, grade 1, Argo Siren Calliopeia. So when this unit is placed on rearguard, if you have a Vanguard CB1, search your deck or drop for up to 1 Titan card and reveal it and put it into your hand. And if you search the deck, shuffle it. Oh, wow, okay. So now this card directly searches for the Titan card that we want, whether it be in deck or in drop. That's really good, actually, yeah. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, the Titan was put into your order zone, then this unit gets continuous 5k. So it's a 13k booster, an attacker worst case scenario, but welcome booster for sure, with a handy skill on top of that. So grade 3 tier dragon, it looks like. Yep, tier 2. Yep, this is the last card actually. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle from deck or hand, if you have a Vanguard with Argo Siren its card name, this unit gets 5k until the end of the turn, and then you can additionally pay the cost of CB1 or Energy Blast straight to draw a card. This reminds me of the, I believe it's the Citrus card from Prison. That way when you call it, you get some benefit, but if you want to pay the additional cost, you get to draw a card. That's actually really nice. And it lets you use CB1 or Energy Blast straight. Oh, I did notice that the Vanguard is the only one that uses Energy Blast, so this card in tandem would actually use the rest of it. Okay, that makes sense too. The second skill is auto. Once per turn, when this unit attacks, if you may have this unit get 5k until the end of the turn, and if you do, at the end of this turn, retire this unit. So you can make this guy bigger on the first attack, still keep the power, and then restand him. He'll still have the same power, and then until the end of the turn, he actually removes himself. So you get to benefit of that +5 twice, essentially, which is nice. Very appreciated. So now what do I think about this deck? I think it's at a very good place to start for being the first wave of support, essentially. The fact that we can get 5 attacks, 2 of them being Vanguard swings, is pretty good. It does check for your opponent being in grade 3, so if you're going first, you're going to have 4 attacks without a restanding Vanguard, of course. But you can still set up your orders in the order zone. for the next turn. But if you're going second, you immediately get the benefit of being able to restand your Vanguard and have a restanding rearguard at the same time for 5 attacks. The 5k passive is actually really nice because you could probably make some numbers with the additional powers that the boosters and even the units are getting themselves. I mean, that tier dragon is basically a 23k beater on its own, and then another 5k makes it 28. That's actually really nice. And then that doesn't include any boosters, especially for a turn 3 type of deal with multi-attack. In terms of generic support, obviously Stoicheia has a good amount of stuff that we can use. It's just what fits for the deck. I mentioned Inlet Pulse, of course. Does the deck need it? I don't know offhand, but I think it wouldn't hurt. I feel like you have the Vanguard, so you want to Persona Right, obviously. And you have the new tier dragon that goes with it. And maybe if you want to add a couple Inlet Pulses, because you also have the order cards, so you got to think about that too. Maybe with the order cards, you have a 3-3 ratio, just like Sarhuja, for example, in that deck. So you do have a good amount of cards that have no shield already. So adding Inland Pulse would help with the soul and also draw an extra card at the end of the turn. But you're also having rearguards that make better numbers than Inland Pulse. So I feel like Inland Pulse wouldn't be an attacking rearguard at that point. He might be behind a unit just to be like, oh, I can go into soul and draw an extra card and feel for the soul. I don't know. So I feel like Inlet Pulse may not be as necessary as people think, like, oh, this will be good, but I don't know. I have to play test this, obviously, but those are like my fresh shots, literally. There's also the more generic cards. So if you think about like maybe the order retrieval cards, I know some people were thinking like if we can get order cards from the drop zone, that would help too. I know Zorga had used other cards before in the past, even Flagberg builds too. So that could be something worth exploring as well. I've considered cycle cards. Obviously, we cannot use Cutlass because this is a Stoicheia deck, not a Encounter clan deck, basically. So what comes to mind are like the Grade 2 Cyclers, essentially. But it looks like energy is being used already with this deck, and then also the CB. And then if we use like Margaret, for example, it uses the soul. But we have the orders that do use soul. So then now we have to make sure that we have cards that fuel the soul stuff. So would we need cyclers or can we even play them? That's something to try out. I don't know how it is in board building, but it seems like it's sufficient, especially if we have the grade 3 order that actually lets us choose from what we want. But you could consider like cards that build boards such as like Azure Sky, the grade 2, but obviously it kind of contradicts being in the front row. And then also like it's a pricey card. So if you don't have it, you really don't want to spend the money for that card right now, especially for a deck like this at this point. I have considered other cards, like maybe in the late game, you can use Nectar, for example, because eventually you'll reach a 15 in drop. And if you have a restanding rearguard, you can give it like more power and crit. So now you have this turn where you have a restanding Vanguard, but you have this restanding crit rearguard on top of that. But that's like a maybe turn 4, turn 5 type of play. And also assuming that you have enough orders to be able to use the skill efficiently, because you will have to play Nectar as your order per turn, essentially. So you need to play that right. Again, just thoughts offhand at that point too. Overall, I like this idea of a deck. I think this is a good addition to Stoicheia just to mess with, especially if you're into Aquaforce. This screams Aquaforce, obviously with Battle Siren, and even the skills make sense to me. Having restanding rearguards, having restanding boosters. We appreciate any power gains and also just being able to have a restanding Vanguard, like with the Aquaforce aesthetic. I'm appreciative of this. This is a good Christmas surprise, essentially, literally. Let me know in the comments what you think too, what this deck could use, or what you are excited for it too as well. Love to hear your thoughts, have a conversation going. And if you want to see any like deck profiles I did one with Glory as well. So if you're into Aquaforce, you definitely check out that video. That's something definitely you want to check out. Until next time, amigos. Bye.